in especially Malmö, but all over Sweden, in honor of remembering Nakba, 1948. And we are extremely privileged to have two fantastic people participating and talking. The first one will be Professor Ilan Pappé, that last December, did a tour in Sweden and talked to full university aulas in 4 different places. Thank you, Ilan, for taking time. He is probably the most renowned scholar, historian, and political scientist within the history, especially linked to Nakba and the policies of the Israeli state and even before the Israeli state. And after Ilan Pappé, we will have the artist Rana Bishara sitting in Palestine, doing different kinds of installations and artwork, often linking in general to the situation of Palestinians, but also especially to the Nakba. And since Ilan is much better than me in talking about Nakba, I will not explain. I think most of you know a little bit of it. But Ilan will talk for about 20 minutes, and there will be possibility to send questions in the chat. Again, Ilan, it's a privilege. Yeah, and if you look at my screen, I've taken a few of Ilan's book productions in the and there are a number of books, those at the right hand, that have also been translated to Swedish. And later I'll talk a little bit about Rana's and her work that are also in this slide. But welcome, Ilan, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'll speak for as I thought I should speak for 10 minutes, not 20. That's what you wrote to me. So let's agree on 15. And I will have to leave you by 8:30. So half past. I don't know what the time is in Sweden. Half past the hour, anyway. So I want to leave some time for questions. So unfortunately, I can only be with you for half an hour, and I do apologize. But Andres would be the first one to admit that he approached me in a very, very last moment. So I had to squeeze you into an already prearranged evening, and that's the only reason my time is limited. So, talking about limited time, I should start speaking. I think most of you, of course, know what the Nakba means, and it's always important on the 15th of May, the International Nakba Day, to more than in any other day of the year, to make sure that we are not part of the ongoing denial of that event. So little is still being talked about on the 15th of May in the Western media. If at all there is a reference on the 15th of May, it's a very short reference, usually in a very distorted manner. And more than anything else that usually outrages me, especially in Britain, but I suppose it's true also in other parts, is the fact that Britain's role and Europe's role in the Nakba is totally not mentioned at all, as if this is an event that had nothing to do with Europe, and especially in Britain, it's even more absurd that the idea that it has nothing to do with Britain. So let us remind ourselves about the main things that happened in the Nakba, and also say something about the historiography of the Nakba, so that I think is a major kind of the core message that I would have liked schools, academia, media, and especially politicians to discuss when they think about what's happening today in Israel and Palestine, or when they're trying to think what should what should be their role in the future as diplomats, as policymakers, and so on. Let me start by saying that in many ways the ethnic cleansing of Palestine in 1948 was unfortunately an inevitable consequence of the nature of the Zionist project in Palestine. Not surprisingly, finally, the academia defines Zionism as settler colonialism, movement of Europeans that don't have a place in Europe for various reasons and are trying to rebuild Europe on another people's land. And in most cases, they believe that they have the moral right and the necessity to totally eliminate the local native population for building the new Europe instead of the Europe that didn't want them. And from the very beginning of the Zionist project in the late 19th century, and especially when the Zionist project began to unfold on the land itself, it was very clear that the idea of having as much of Palestine as possible, with as few Palestinians in it as possible, was the core ideological objective of the Zionist movement. And the way to translate this ideological core idea or objective depended on the circumstances, the capacity, the reaction of the Palestinians, the reaction of the Arab world. But the will was always there. And in the 1920s already, the first significant purchase of land by the Zionist movement turned into ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian villages that had lived for centuries on the land that was bought by the Zionist movement, mostly from absentee landlords, namely landlords who were not even Palestinians and did not live in Palestine. Encouraged by this ability to take over land and remove the people, while Britain is responsible for law and order, encouraged the Zionist movement to prepare more strategic plans for a much wider scale kind of ethnic cleansing. And the opportunity came, of course, the moment Britain decided to leave Palestine on the 1st of February 1947. While Palestinian leaders and Arab leaders thought that the British decision to leave Palestine would lead to a long period of negotiations, deliberations, as happened in Iraq, in Egypt, in other places, what would be the future of Palestine, the Zionist movement saw that period in a very different way. It believed that there was a vacuum, and that vacuum allowed it to plan total transformation of Palestine from an Arab country into a Jewish state. And they had already built the military capacity, the financial backing, and the training to do so in the years that preceded 1948. It was very clear to them, with very good intelligence, one should say, that the moment already in February 1947, that Britain decided that it's no longer responsible for Palestine, even before it transferred the issue to the United Nations, that the British would not take any active part in defending the Palestinians. And therefore, a year after the British decision to leave Palestine, the Zionist forces tried for the first time to remove by force villages, not because they have bought the land on the village, but because they wanted the land on the villages. And these were three villages around Caesarea in Arabic. And they removed the people, and the British did not react. And this was always the mode of action. When the British did not react, they decided that they can now move, even when Britain is still responsible for law and order, to something much bigger than removing three villages. And in March, just a month after they expelled three villages in Palestine, they prepared a plan called Plan D, to remove as many Palestinians as possible from the urban centers of Palestine. So they began to attack the Arab neighborhoods in Haifa, in Jaffa, in West Jerusalem, and they already also planned to totally depopulate Palestinians' towns like Baisan, and also included in their program in March, April 1948, Acre, Safad, and Tabarias. But the biggest challenge, of course, were Haifa and Jaffa, because there was a sizable number of Palestinians in Haifa and Jaffa, tens of thousands of people. And we have to remember that, yes, there was some sort of awareness among local leaders in Haifa, Jaffa, or Tabarias that a certain attack is coming. But two things happened. Those leaders went to the Arab League asking for help, and the Arab League hesitated whether it should interfere while the British were still under responsible for law and order. And there was also a very serious rift between the Hashemite camp, led by King Abdullah of Jordan, and Egypt. And these local differences disabled any effective Arab League coordinated action to save Haifa, Jaffa, Baisan, Acre, Tabarias from the Zionist attack in March and April. And it continued to the beginning of May 1948. So local national committees, there were some committees, and I can understand them, knew that they didn't have the military capacity to defend themselves, understood that the British will not interfere on their behalf, although the British were obliged to interfere and defend them according to the mandate, because they were still responsible for the mandate. And they were left to themselves and were brutally displaced. Tens of thousands of people from Haifa, Jaffa, and all the other towns I mentioned. Now, what happened as well was not just the expulsion of people from the cities, but also from the villages around the cities. And I'm not the only historian who also found out that there was a clear pattern that made it easier to expel the cities in 1948, and that was to commit a massacre in one of the villages around the cities to send a message to the people of the city that if they don't evict by themselves, they could have the same fate as those who've been massacred. And in all the big around all the big villages, there were massacres preceding the final attack on the cities. Now, what happened was that by the 15th of May, almost 250,000 Palestinians were already refugees, many of them making their way to what became later the West Bank, Lebanon, Syria, Egypt. It's still incredible that due to the work of Israeli historians and some Palestinian historians even who do not understand, I think, the picture, a distorted narrative is built that totally ignores the fact that by the 15th of May, there were already 250,000 Palestinian refugees, and all the Palestinian cities, apart from Lid and Ramle, Nazareth was not really a city until all the refugees came to it, that were decimated. Why is it important? Because even among sort of let's say, peace people, or people who are not against the Palestinian rights, the narrative is that, 15th of May, the Arab world sent its armies into Palestine. As a result of that, Palestinians became refugees because there was a war. But that's not true. The Arab world sent its troops after a large number of Palestinians became refugees. So Palestinians became refugees not because of the war. The war started because Palestinians became refugees. It's very important to keep this chronology in mind. And yet, very few places it is taught and explained in such a way. And the Arab world sent too little and too late its armies, and the Jewish community, the Zionist community in Palestine, had the capacity, together with a lot of help from Jews and Christians around the world, to do both things on the 15th of May 1948, to defend themselves from the troops that the Arab world has sent to try and save the Palestinians, and at the same time to continue the ethnic cleansing of Palestine. So it didn't stop. And by the end of October, by the 1st of November 1948, most of the people who lived under what would become the state of Israel, which is nearly 80% of historical Palestine, most of the people who lived there became refugees. Now, as the ethnic cleansing progressed, more and more Palestinians locally understood the fate that awaits them and refused to board the trucks or the buses. And any such refusal was met in a deadly manner, and quite a few massacres happened during the ethnic cleansing operation because of the people's refusal to leave their homes. Other massacre happened just because it was a decision of a local commander either to revenge for a certain event that happened in the past, or because they were left with too many people in the village because they were not planning correctly the eviction of the village. That happened in several villages. Israel only released 2% of the documents that relate to its war crimes in 48, only 2%, even less, I would say. So if we can have such a picture with the help of oral history and the documents of a very kind of cruel execution of the ethnic cleansing in 48, we can imagine that if all the documents would have been open to us, we would have even a fuller picture. Of course, oral history is very important. People remember traumatic events such as massacres, war crimes, and so on. But if you want to have a picture about the planning, and we still need to do some work on it, how much of the massive killing was part of the plan, and how much of the massive killing was the result of the ethnic cleansing plan, it's not the most crucial question, but it's something that I'm sure in the future, as historians, we will be able to answer. Finally, I should say two things. The world, that is, politicians, journalists, United Nations people, knew exactly what was happening and decided not to do anything. So it wasn't that they didn't know, they knew. They decided not to do anything. And finally, as you probably know, Israel very quickly operated to try and wipe out the memory of the villages and towns that it destroyed by planting trees on it or by building Jewish settlements on it, hoping that this would cover up the ethnic cleansing of 48. Also, its treatment of the refugees, not allowing them to return, convincing the United Nations not to deal with the issue of return, but to deal with the issue of resettlement in Arab countries. All of that was part of a very strong Israeli conviction that actually they solved the problem. Yes, there was a small Palestinian minority. They thought this was a small minority they could deal with, although they continued the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians who became citizens of Israel until 1966, mostly until 1956. They expelled another 13 villages, but they felt it was under control. But they were wrong. They were wrong. Despite everything that happened, despite the fact that half of the Palestinians were expelled from Palestine, half of the Palestinians remained in Palestine, and many others remained near Palestine. And they rebuilt the national movement, reignited the struggle. So in a way, the Nakba was not successful, and that's why it continued in many ways, because The Palestinians were there. There were still parts of Palestine Israel wanted and didn't occupy in 48, and they occupied only 67. The mentality behind the Nakba is the same mentality behind the genocide in Gaza. The world's indifference to the Nakba is the same world indifference to the genocide. But the same resilience and resistance that prevented the Nakba from being a complete success is the one that gives us hope in the future that with the help of, if not government and societies in the region and in the world, Israel would not be able to complete the work on it started on the 48 Nakba. I think I'll stop here. I have some time to take some questions, and then I'll have to leave you, I'm afraid. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Ilan. There's already two questions. The first one says that the similarity between Israeli treatment of Palestinians and the pogroms that Jews were victims of in Europe is striking. Is this something that is inevitable? How can we deal with genocide and ethnic cleansing after this fact?
Yeah, well, victims can become victimizers. Absolutely, that is true. In fact, it's even more sinister. It was very clear that some of the methods used against Jews in Europe were used against Palestinians by Jews. I'm not saying the same Jews were necessarily the direct victims of anti-Semitism, but definitely were aware of what a pogroms means. What is really striking is, and that is a famous sentence by Golda Meir. She came to Haifa after the expulsion of the people of Haifa, and she said that the scene reminds her of the pogroms that her parents experienced in Europe. And you thought maybe this sentence meant some compassion. But the second part of the sentence was that we will never forgive the Palestinians what they forced us to do to them. What is really amazing, those of you who you're not French, so maybe you don't know that, the idiot Minister of Foreign Affairs of France, and he's an idiot, who said in the French Senate just 2 weeks ago, he used this sentence by Golda Meir to show how moral the Israelis are. I mean, he didn't even understand that this example doesn't show the morality of Golda Meir. It shows something very different of Golda Meir. But he used it in the parliament to defeat a decision that was asked to boycott Israel by saying, how can you boycott people like this who said that we're blaming the Palestinians for the fact that they forced us to kill them. You know, this is such an absurdity, but that's for another discussion. We are doing all what we can. What can we do? This has to be stopped by all the tools that are there for the international community. But the international community has to accept, especially in its centers of power, that they have allowed the Palestinians to be victims of such a criminal policy for so many years, since 1948, and continue to allow it. The reason they allow it, I think, is because most of people in the West, most states, not people, in the West, still think that this is a European country or Western country, and they want to defend it for whatever reasons. But this is something unacceptable. Yeah.
A follow-up, slightly linked to that. You said at the start that when the Nakba is mentioned, we rarely center the European, Great Britain's implication in the perpetuating that event, perhaps also Germany. The latter is taking more active role at the moment in supporting the Israeli project in Palestine, thinking through historical trajectory of the German state and looking deeper beyond the proclaimed notion of redeeming its own atrocities of the Holocaust. What motivates Germany to retain its current position as the supporter of Israel?
I think that there's a generational issue here with the German political system. The older German political system is very much informed by its own strategic decisions about how to connect Nazism and the Nazi chapter of Germany and Europe and Zionism. I think they're still building this idea that, of course, the Zionist movement helped them to build after 45, that the best way to deal with the crimes against the Jews and the genocide of the Jews in the Second World War was by total unconditional support for Israel. That's the way you absorb. For that, you need all kinds of assumptions, which are totally false. That Israel represents all the Jewish people, that Israel represents all the Jewish people who died in the Holocaust, that Israel represents all the Jewish people who survived the Holocaust. All this is not true, but the Germans decided that it is true because it helped them not to deal with their own, not only them, Europe and Germany, with the Jewish problem. To that, you have to add, to go back to history and understand that it was very important for the United States to include West Germany as a welcome member of NATO, or not NATO, it wasn't NATO yet, a welcome member of the Western Bloc in the Cold War, and they thought that if Israel would legitimize West Germany as a new denazified Germany, then the rest of the West would accept it as a legitimate member. This is why Israel was the second state to recognize Germany as a new Germany. Very quickly, they recognized it. In return, Germany gave Israel a lot of money to build both its conventional army, and as we now found out in the archives just recently, Germany was the main funder of Israel's nuclear weapons. Because even the United States at the time understood that nuclear weapons in the hands of Israel is a danger for the world, and they refused Israel to help Israel to develop nuclear capacity. So Israel went to West Germany, and Germany gave them the know-how, which they already had from the Nazi period, and the help. The current generation of German politicians, I think it's a bit different. There's still some of that, linkage between what happened in the Holocaust and the necessary policies towards Israel. But I think that this is something that is less important compared to the whole nature of politicians in the EU. And Germany, of course, is the most important country in the EU. The younger generation of EU politicians, and it doesn't matter whether they're German or not German, are self-centered, are interested in career, they're not interested in values, they don't have a moral backbone. And as long as they think, and that's what they think, that confronting Israel for what it does can harm their career, they won't criticize Israel. So I think that's the main reason, rather than, they clothe it as the need to protect Israel because of what happened in the Holocaust. But I talked to so many of them in Germany. I speak German, so I can understand them. I was convinced that they don't really believe in it, that this is not the issue. That the real issue is that they are afraid. And they said, we have a comfort zone, a clear career. It's true also about German academics. You pay a price today if you confront Israel. And they don't want to pay the price. So I think it's a mixture of both. But it's good to start with explaining to Germans, and I'm doing it in a new book that I write in German now, why Israel is not a Jewish state. Because that's where it starts. The idea that they are dealing with the Jews or Jewishness by dealing with Israel. They're not. They're dealing with Zionism, which is very different. And they're dealing with colonialism and imperialism and white supremacy, not just Jewish supremacy. And that is why it's so relevant to them, not because it's a Jewish issue or not a Jewish issue, but because it's a Western project, it's a European project, it's a German project. And that is why it's so important. So we need to not allow them use the conversation on Israel the way they want, but explain to them their complicity in the suffering of the Palestinians.
Thank you very much, Ilan, and thank you for taking time for Little Sweden again. But we are strong fans of the work you are doing, and also how much you're working with disseminating knowledge that so few want to see. Thank you for taking time.
And if you invite me in time, I can come for a whole seminar. Just give me some time. Don't ask me in the last minute. But if you invite me in due time, I would be very happy to spend more time with you, answer questions, hear your comments, and so on. Unfortunately, this evening was already prearranged with other commitments which I have to fulfill. So thank you. Wonderful to see you all, and thank you for the great work that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. And then, Rana, was great to see you. I hope to see you soon in person. High time. It's been ages since I saw you in London, but I hope to see you very, very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
All the best. Thank you.
And now, after this historical expose that ended up with today, we go over to artist Rana Bishara in Palestine, doing a lot of different types of artistic work, installations, and so on, often with linkage direct to Palestine and the situation there, and also direct to the remembering al-Nakba and so on. Please, Anna, welcome.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. I'm so thrilled to be among you, and very excited at the same time, very saddened in such difficult times to be able, to express ourselves while we are still bleeding and getting hard feelings at these times. I'm on the border of Palestine, north of Palestine, with South Lebanon, and it has been very challenging, quite difficult to be found to start even to go back to our life. But I will start like this. I'm a Palestinian artist and activist, a human being trying to survive in times of siege and segregation and Nakba and Holocaust and genocide all merged together. That's all I can say at these days. So it's all mixed together, all combined, all running in my mind, in my memory, in my childhood, and in my adulthood. So I'm a daughter of both parents, survivors of the Holocaust, our Nakba. My mom is 87 now, in 88, and my late dad, he could have been now 100 and something. And so I actually owe them both and my two grandmothers a great thanks that they actually made sure that we will still be in Palestine, in our land, in our village. So I'm so thankful to be talking to you from Galilee. Galilee is 1948 territory, and there were during the Nakba. My father was a freedom fighter. He fought to defend his village in 1948. He was 17 years old, and with another young men and adult men and women. They were defending our village from all sides, and so that's why our village fall in October. We actually resisted until October 27, 28, 29 of October, and then our village, me and Orwa is my village comrade, let's say. His father was also his late father, bless his soul. He also was expelled from the village, and so that's why he ended up in Sweden. I ended up here in Palestine. So you can understand the feelings and the mixed feelings we have in our village. We have great respect for our refugees or our internally displaced people. So I want to start with my early childhood. I was quite a normal child, but I ended up, being, hearing all the voices, all the bombs from, from where I am. So I lived through the Katyusha time until all the wars, the 82. I was quite already 11 years old when I heard the massacre of Sabra and Shatila. And that was my first pinch of bitterness. So I was a child. I was marching from the church because we are a mixed village, Christians and Muslims. So I was marching from the church to the mosque as a child with many of my classmates, and we were hearing the prayers from the mosque with the church bells having very sad, rings. So I ended up at that day just imagining what is the meaning of a massacre. I heard my neighbor saying, "Oh wow, there was a Sabra and Shatila massacre." So as a child, whatever of memory you have, you can imagine not as brutal as we are watching today. But of course, after like 12 years ago, I ended up doing this monument for Sabra and Shatila in Paris, as a commemoration. So you can imagine I transferred my early childhood into a monument, which is really a heavy duty position to do that. But regardless of everything, I had really great childhood because my grandmother, my two grandmothers, they were loving and caring. My mother was loving and caring. So they were telling us what they have been through. So the first thing she told us about the Safar Barlik during the Ottoman, the Ottoman times, and where they collected all the young men to go serve in the army, in the Turkish army. So all the time I was hearing about her trying to hide from, from the massacres that happened. So for me, my father was also a great guide because we used to go pick up cactus and za'atar from the mountains, where I discovered that the cactus is the omnipresence of Palestinian villages and towns. They were surrounding our villages, and they were making sure that no wild animals. I'm gonna actually try and connect my screen with you. Just a second, please. Can you see my screen?
We can see your screen, but
Sure. 1 second. I'm just trying to connect to the right. Okay. So I want to start with my very first painting I did when I was a child. I was maybe 11 years old after Sabra and Shatila. So this piece is Kufr Qasim, the Kufr Qasim massacre. You can imagine how much memory I have from childhood. So at that time, I was hearing and listening that it's forbidden to paint with the four colors of the Palestinian flag. Some of the Palestinian painters, like Suleiman Mansour and Nabil Anani and Vera Tamari, they were actually, some of them, they were jailed and they were imprisoned for using the Palestinian, the four Palestinian colors of the Palestinian flag. So this is my very first painting that I did. And you can see the blood, you can see the black and the dramatic scene in this piece. So this was my first encounter with oil color and where I started. But I want to start also with my other part, that the cactus. Okay, I will just go through some of my cactus pieces. My early cactus work was this piece called The Scream of the Wadi. It was done in Haifa in a very nice old neighborhood in Haifa, where you can see the old houses. They were torn down, and I decided to hang 100 pieces of cactus, and then later on, you can see the ruins of the house. Later on, the cactus actually bear some fruit for me. It was the answer. It was in the early 90s, 91, 92. So I collected 100 pieces of cactus and the tiles of the house, and I created like a collage on the wall because I was screaming against the brutality of the occupation. That was my very first piece with the cactus. And there was also, I will just go through a few cactus pieces. My early one was like this. This one, it's called Homage to Palestine, where I pickled the cactus. Wherever you find cactus these days, you know that there was a Palestinian village, and the resistance and the existence of the village through the cactus was covered with fake forests from Europe. So that's why, for me, that was the answer, because cactus is very resilient. And wherever you find a small piece of cactus, you throw it and it will grow again and again. It's like our people, the Palestinian people. That was a piece that I carved for a face of a prisoner that actually regrow again from nothing, you know, from a dried cactus, it actually regrow the green. This was, I talk about the prisoners through cactus as well. So this piece of cactus also grew up out of the barbed wire. This was the face of Samer Isawi, where I carved his face. He looks like Jesus, a Palestinian Jesus. And sorry, my cat is jumping. So this was in Lifta. Lifta is a Palestinian village next to Jerusalem, where their people were kicked out, and the houses are still standing. But these days, they are creating, you know, letting artists live in these studios to create their art there. You can imagine how inhumane to let people being exiled and living in Jerusalem, and you are taking over their house. And what's written here is لن نتخلى, we'll never forget, we'll never forgive, we'll never, you know, surrender. This was also yet another Hana Shalabi, another prisoner. That was very early work. He was actually on a hunger strike for 237 days, and he is still in prison after maybe 10 years. This was also a piece of mine that it's playground for children, because our childhood is so massacred, so contaminated with memories of arrests and abuse and killing, and that's this piece is quite old as well. But I have to say something. The more I look at my work, my early work, I discovered that this is not even close to describe or to express my feelings towards what's happening today in this brutal Holocaust we are going through in Lebanon, in Syria, in Palestine, in Gaza, in Iran, all around for children. So these are like details. This piece is recycling patience. Cactus also in Arabic to be patient. Sabbar, sabur, from being patient. I'm recycling the cactus. I'm recycling my patience even. And in the first one, I was preserving my patients, holding into the patients what left to us, especially in 1948, because we are living under really brutal occupation, but it's undercover. But in the West Bank is totally, upfront. You can see it, you can watch it, but also in 48, in different ways. So cactus for me is one of my tools that I actually speak through. And this piece also especially dipped with chocolate. I call it sweetie. This one is talking about how much of a beautiful of a homeland we have, but we cannot enjoy it. We are so desperate to live a normal life. There is no normality here. The abnormality became our normal life, our normal. So here, in order to get the sweetness, because we are living in a beautiful, fertile area, beautiful landscape, amazing atmosphere, but we cannot enjoy it. We cannot get the sweetness. This is all about time and the time gaining of the occupation. Occupation keep making sure that yet another phase of occupation, another phase of genocide, another phase of buying time, and at the same time creating facts on the ground to make sure that nothing will survive, but we are still here after 78 years. This is the crucifixion. For me, Jesus these days has been really on the, because many just yesterday they issued yet the death sentence for our prisoners, and yet another phase of abuse and killing, and of course the gang of Ben Gvir and Netanyahu is making sure that everybody it will not survive. But the cactus here is with the crucifixion is like our people, the people of who have suffered, who are defending our nation, defending our homeland. We have the right to defend ourselves against all this brutality, all this harm, all this, So this is the crucifixion. Also here, prisoners, the issue of prisoners is very important for me in my art. I do a lot of activism as well. I go in the street. I talk. Through demonstrations. I do performances. So this piece was actually how the prisoners marking their days in prison. This is a puzzle of cactus. Yet another shackles of the prisoners. I will just, for now, I also want to show you another piece that's called a blindfolded history. This piece talks about the Nakba in a different way. While Ilan talked about history, I talk about history through my art, through my senses, through many things that I really think it's very very important. These pieces are pictures that after the Nakba, this was right after the Nakba, where people were expelled and they were in the tent. And the scenes are repeated now. These days, since 3 years, we have been living constant bombing, constant replacement, constant starvation, rape, killing, imprisonment. That piece was in 2003. Just imagine that we are actually living the worst of this. So this piece is, it was 65 pieces of glass, real glass, printed with chocolate. I was talking about the abuse and the sadism of the occupation. chocolate because they are enjoying their sadism, enjoying their brutality. So that's why I chose chocolate to also, because it's resembling the fat of our body, the fat and of the human body. So here there is a very, very slow, a delicate layer of chocolate printed over the glass. It's very fragile, very, sorry. So here you can see children being murdered, being massacred. This is the space here. You can maneuver between and smell the chocolate while you are watching war scenes. I collected these images from different locations, from different periods of time where children and men and women and depicting all the Nakba time. This also like Israeli soldiers, occupation soldiers. This is an iconic image, for example, but it's all layering the periods of time we are living. This piece actually the one who triggered me to do the chocolate piece, because they are posing next to Palestinian prisoners and enjoying that. The level of sadism that we are actually living the last 3-4 years, the least to say, is repetitive, and yet we can see even worse and worse and worse of their abuse and their sickness and the rape in the Israeli prisons, and they actually released the rapers, as we know. Some, of course, we have about 85 prisoners. They were massacred in Israeli prison after being abused. There's a lot to say, but I'm trying to be as patient as I could. Okay. I also would like to share with you, and then I will pause for a minute, and if you have any questions, that will be also a good idea. This is a glass book, since we are talking about the Nakba, the commemoration of the Nakba. This is a very important piece. It was done also in the 90s, and no, sorry, in the early 2013. I depicted all the image, all the villages, 531 villages. They were depopulated, demolished, and until now, nothing happened. The opposite. Gaza has been, even flattened. Half of 2/3 of Gaza were flattened now. So we can see the feeling that I'm talking here about the Nakba in 48, and now we are living yet another few Nakbas going on and on and on. So this piece is a very important one, and it's a glass, and it's very fragile because it's a historic document that leave us desperate what to do with this, how to deal with this fragility while we are living the Holocaust. I call it the Holocaust. We are living the time of Holocaust, honestly, not even ethnic cleansing. It's beyond that. It's beyond. They turned Gaza into rubbles, into ashes, because I'm following with the people. Nowadays there is a biological war going on. So we can imagine the level of brutality, the level of viciousness and the carnage that has been going on for 3 years, and the world leaders are silent, or even complicit, and they are partners. And we know the people are with us, and we respect that, and we want more people to support us and boycott Israel, because other than that, there is no even boycott. There is no boycott from the government. The European Union yesterday, they even put some small sanctions here and there on small small portion of those monsters that has been abusing the West Bank since 2 years. They are unleashed in the villages and in the towns, stealing, burning, abusing, killing. So where is that going to stop? So this image is actually bringing more and more memories of the place. Yeah. Anyway, any questions, any concerns? Like, I would like to hear also from you. And if I'm talking too much or too fast, please make sure to ask me questions.
So you can write the questions in the chat if you want.
Okay. This piece also, since we are talking about boycott, this is a Palestinian date, and the boycott is very important. The cultural and the economical boycott. I decided to put a bullet, an old bullet that I found actually in Haida refugee camp. I was there. The reason I brought up this also because I'm living between the West Bank and Galilee. So watching what has been happening in the West Bank, I lived there for 10 years, and watching now what has been happening in Lebanon, it's like a three-dimensional genocide. Because how much you can take as a human being, how much you can comprehend, how much you can understand, where are we getting towards. So that's why I think I highly recommend everybody to really make sure that no Israeli products on their shelves, no Israeli products in their, in the universities. Of course, somebody like Ilan, of course, I highly respect, and I'm proud to be lecturing among him. But it has been going on for too long. I think boycott is a very important issue that we should consider.
There's a question here from Ale. What can we call the Gaza genocide? New Nakba, Maraka, Holocaust. You use Holocaust a lot. Can you reflect a little bit on that? And then another question, how is it to act as a Palestinian artist and so on? What do you think is the reception? Where do people see what you really mean, or where do they just see the contours of your artistic work?
Well, I think art has a big role in our society. First of all, I have to say I call it a Holocaust. I mean it. I really mean it, because I'm following up with my friends, and I'm 55 years old, and I haven't seen a day of joy in my life. Our life is better. I since Nakba, since early childhood until now, I haven't seen any day of really. Of course, as a child, you will not comprehend as we comprehend today, but you feel the heaviness of your cause. It's a very heavy cause.
It's 21 hours.
Sorry. So I call it a Holocaust. It's even worse than a Holocaust because it's ongoing. It never stopped. It never paused even. They never paused. They never, because as Palestinians, 48, we also have our own package. As citizens of Israel, we are supposedly equal citizens, but it's not the case. When I went to the university, I was discriminated against. Many of the topics we want to learn and study in for our students, medical studies is not easily allowed for Palestinians. Social workers, anything that has to do with electric engineering and of course piloting, it's not allowed for us. So we are living under, how do you call it, a very, very brutal regime. So nowadays we have Adala that has a list of rules and restrictions. And of course, we can go on and on. I can also pinpoint their website. Even to demonstrate, there was a demonstration during the beginning of the Holocaust in Gaza. Up until 2 years and a half, our friend, our comrades, two comrades, are still in court hearings. So that was one single demonstration, a massive demonstration, and they picked them up, and then they want these people to be the example for other people. So for us as young activists and with other young activists, I'm not young, but young other artists, we decided to do artwork in the street and to read poems and to read poems from Gaza, poems from the West Bank, to bring them up to the street in Haifa, for example. And yet we are threatened, and we get tickets, financial tickets, to pay fines for our. For example, I got 2 tickets to pay fine for just making an art piece in the street, accusing me of making the sidewalk dirty with the red color and the honking and all. They are actually trying to silence us by all means. This is something small price comparing to the price the Gaza and the West Bank are paying. So we have to keep going. That's why.
What do you see as the advantages with art as a way of struggling for Palestinian liberation, and what do you see as the disadvantages with art?
Yeah, the advantage is that you have wide range of possibilities, either painting or installation or performances in the street or vocal, and you also, what I love about my art, that I also engage the community with me, and that's very important. It's not a solo piece. I'm an artist, but I would love to. I feel like this is a big responsibility to be in the street, not only to be in a gallery or in a museum, because not many people, we are not as privileged to have museums and galleries here. So I took the art into the street, and I engage my community, my people, the children, and our people are quite smart to comprehend and get engaged with such artistic interactions. I would like to share with you this piece. This is an example for instance. This is a piece that I did in one of the marathons in Bethlehem. I call it Abacus because since we have about over 450 children, ups and downs, the numbers, of course, and to have a child in a prison, it's a catastrophe. So this piece called Abacus, where I was marching with the children's prisoners' parents in the marathon, and advocating for their liberation and for their release. And this is, for example, one of the children who I witnessed her after her release. This is Shadi Farrah, that was almost 12 years in Israeli prisons. This child has an amputated leg. It's quite interesting to be among the people that they also can talk about their children. They can talk about their relatives. They can engage. They can feel that somebody is talking about their cause and their issues, because we are being bombarded with so many issues, so many causes, so many abuses. So you have to pinpoint some stuff here and there about children, about prisoners, about the prisoners who has been actually held in their corpses has been held for over 10 years. And also, of course, This is of course illegal. This is against all laws. So this is the advantage of being an artist and making sure that our cause is being heard. Also, many times I did also 2 Christmases ago. I will show you also the incubator I did in Bethlehem. So this is an advantage of being an artist, because visual memory is very important, and the visual brings a lot of attention, not only the articles and the politicians, because art has really power, and I believe in art. I believe in the power of art. This is another piece that I will show you as an example. October 2003, I was quite saddened and very, almost collapsed from the brutal Holocaust on Gaza. So I decided to comprehend that, because they were even running after the most, fragile human being, the incubators. They were running after the doctors, kidnapping doctors from hospitals, and running after, or like trying to abuse and kill, and even the premature children. This is how brutal is that. So I took a statue of my friend. I actually borrowed this statue from my friend Rana Bishara. She's also married to my cousin. It's a bronze piece. It's depicting Jesus, okay? But it is sleeping on a bed of cactus with the halo of Jesus, because this was in Bethlehem, where Jesus was born. And I took the red kufiya because of the blood. And I left it in the square there without any electricity, because they were also they kicked the doctors out, and they kicked the nurses, and they told them, oh, we will take care of the children. And sure enough, I think 2 months later, they came to the hospital. It was Nasser Hospital, as I remember. They found the children are, I cannot even describe the scene. So this was the piece in the Church of Nativity and Holy Sepulchre, and unplugged from electricity. That was my screen. That was October 2003 when all this started, and I wasn't even sure that we're gonna go on for 3 years now.
There's a question. When you speak about life under brutality, I'm reminded of the fate of the blacks in United States who were uprooted and made slaves in a foreign land. Today, they are oppressed citizens of the United States more than descendants of African slaves who want to go home. For most, their home is the United States. Can you comment on the strong connection you express to the land of Palestine, and in a more wider sense, remembering Nakba, this about the keys and the link to Palestine?
Yeah, of course, that's a very good question, and thank you for that. The Black Panther also, it's very important, the history that we are also have learned in our history, and we have learned the Holocaust history, sure enough. But comparing with the Black Panther, and we know the struggle of the Africans. I myself also lived in the US for 4 years, and I witnessed that, and I was an eyewitness of. I lived in the South in Savannah, Georgia, and that actually put more spot on what is the black life of Americans. So that's why for me, all these issues, I'm connecting the dots together, and I'm making sure that the stream of my people will also amplify to other nations. like the indigenous population, of course, in Canada, in the US, and in Australia, and the African, the slavery, especially in Savannah, where it started on the Savannah River. And I also was witnessing in one of the squares in Savannah, I discovered this church there, where they actually brought the Africans by boats to this city. And I entered the church, and I found these small holes in the church. And I was wondering, what is going on? So they explained to me what was they were holding the people they were brought by boats on the first floor, even underneath the church. So for me, I'm screaming in the face of all this brutality all over the world, for Africans, for indigenous, all over the world. So it pains. It's so much pain. I have even a friend of mine who's an indigenous Canadian, the Turtle Islands. So I think also the black statue also brings all these issues together. Yeah.
Thank you.
And Jesus is not, Jesus is Palestinian, and he's the first martyr, and he is not blue-eyed and with all my respect to all nationalities and all skin colors, but of course he was an indigenous Palestinian, and that's why also I related that to the black Jesus.
Mm.
Yeah, and also here I talk about the hospitals that were totally destroyed. Just imagine one rocket will fall next to an Israeli hospital. What would happen? The number of children has been, I cannot even find the term. They were massacred. They were holocausted. They were burned in their tents, in their hospitals, in their beds. Now they ended up in tents, and now they are facing a biological war. How much of brutality, how much of carnage you have, how much sickness you have to treat a nation in such brutality, in such. So I also raise all the questions here because this incubator this child is desperate, to have a life, to have generations have been erased from family. It's a family holocaust. And now it's been happening these days in south of Lebanon, and we hear all the bombing that they are erasing villages and towns. So yeah, it's very painful, very, very, cannot even put it in words.
Oh. Thank you very much, Rana Bishara. It's really interesting to see your artwork and listen to you. I want to end, and now I turn to Swedish, just to remind the participants that this is the week of Al-Nakba, or remembering Al-Nakba and what is going on. So there's a lot of activities in many different places in Sweden. Malmö, som är alltid värst när det gäller internationell solidaritet. Man kan hålla på varje dag, varje eftermiddag med olika aktiviteter. Imorgon är det Gazarondellen där man kan måla, både aktiviteter för barn och unga. Boycott, Disinvestment, Sanction har ett öppet golv med samtal. På torsdag finns det Palestine Forum för solidaritet till strategi. På fredag finns det film på biograf Panora, All That Is Left of You. På lördag finns det palestinsk konsert, Jams, i Pildammsteatern. Och på söndag finns det stor demonstration, samling klockan 13. Men bara för att Malmö är värst så finns det också i andra ställen. Göteborg på fredag har man en stor demonstration. På lördag i Stockholm är det en stor Palestinasolidarisk demonstration. Det var de som står där. Sen kan man, eftersom detta är en del av ett större, jag tror Ilan Pappé pratade om imperialism och västvärlden och så vidare, så vill jag också, även om det är utanför Stoppa Israel, så har vi gjort information om att i Helsingborg på lördag finns det en stor demonstration för att det är NATO-toppmöte i kommande vecka i Helsingborg. Så tack för att ni kom och lyssnade på Ilan Pappé och Rana Bishara. Och det är bra att vi informerar och får kunskap. Men det är också bra att vi syns och kämpar på gator och torg i konst, innanför universitetsvärlden, på arbetsplatser. Alla kan göra lite, ingen kan göra allt. Men fritt Palestina, det ska det bli. Det tror till och med Ilan Pappé på. Så ta vara på er, och Orwa och jag som organiserade, hoppas ni kommer på fler seminarier. Jag vet inte Orwa, ifall du har något sista ord du vill säga.
Not actually, but I would thank you, Rana. I will thank you, Ilan Pappé, som har left us. Thank you, Anders. Tack så jättemycket för er alla som kämpar, vi tillsammans. Kampen fortsätter, det är inte lätt, men vi fortsätter vår kamp för fritt Palestina. Och hoppas vi ses nästa månad igen, den 16 juni. Vi har en nytt seminarium om intifada. Tack så jättemycket och vi ses på gator och torg. Thank you very much. It was an honor and we keep going. Thank you.
Thank you, Orwa. Thank you, everybody, for all the hosts, for all the participants. And I wanted to end up with showing you this piece. It's called the Roadmap for Elimination. Actually, what has been happening on the ground, this is depicted by this piece. And if you need more questions and more pictures, I can send you later on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's made out of cactus and maps.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.